Let me show you the Forms feature in Clarityflow. So I'm going to go down here to Forms, and I'm going to create my first form. We'll call this form my questionnaire. Okay, so by default, we give you a form with a first name, a last name, and an email address. Only the first name and the email address are required. Of course, we can edit these settings and edit those, but actually, I'm going to just start adding new fields to the bottom of my form. So I'm going to go ahead and add a field. And we have all different types of form fields that we can add, such as rich text, which can include like formatting and headlines and even images and things. And then also a single selection. So that's a drop-down menu or radio selection buttons. Or we can do a single checkbox or a multiple selection with multiple checkboxes. We can allow users to upload files, or we can just put static content, like putting instructions in the middle of a form. For now, let's just add a single selection where the user must select their favorite color. Now, every field gets its own unique ID, and we can shorten that if we want to. We can give it some helper text and a description. These are optional. Now, in this case, let's make it a drop-down menu, not radio buttons. And then we're going to give it a few options. All right, I'm going to create that. So now we have that selection field in our form. Let's add another one. And let's do a rich text. And we'll make this one required. How about a file upload field? And we can decide which types of files we will allow. And you know what? I'm going to add some instructions in the middle of my form. So I'm going to go and add a content block. That's a static content block. So this isn't actually a field. This is just some content that I can add. So I can reorder any of these blocks in the form by clicking that. I'm going to move up these instructions a couple spots. All right. And you know what? I'm going to add a bit more formatting to this. Yeah, that's looking better. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this form. I can view this form publicly. Now, I'm still logged in, but I'm going to open it in a different browser window to show you what it looks like. Now, as you can see at the very top, we have a title. I can add more content to the top if I want to. I'll do that in a minute. But now anyone can view this form. Before I go ahead and submit it, let's look at a few more settings that we have. So I'm going to go to my form, and I'm going to first let's set up the display a little bit more. And if I want to, I can even add a video or any kind of message using a message template at the very top of my form. I'm not going to do that this time, but I can do that if I wanted to. I can also change the button text at the bottom. We also have built-in spam protection powered by Cloudflare. So by default, it's invisible and it happens in the background. But if you want to, you can try one of these other options to show a spam protection widget below your form. Or if you need to, you can disable it altogether. We recommend keeping it on if you're sharing your form publicly to a wide audience, but if you're only sharing it to just a few clients, then it's fine to disable the spam protection. We're going to leave it set to invisible right now, and that's usually the best case for most cases. So let's see what we've done so far. I'm going to refresh. I have my content up here. Again, if I wanted to, I can display a video message at the top, but I don't have one prepared just right now. Just a few more settings to walk through before we test it out. Identifying submissions. Now, by default, we give you an email field in the form. You can change this to something else, but we will use that email field or whichever field you define here to identify who is the person submitting this form. We'll check to see if they are already a registered user on Clarityflow, like one of your clients, Or if they're not, then we can submit the form anonymously. This option down here allows you to use Clarityflow's client onboarding flow for any new users who submit the form. So after they submit the form, they can go through the normal client onboarding flow, and you can even customize that flow right here. All the steps that lead to wherever they should be directed after the form submission. And if you want to, you can even lock down the form to make sure that only logged in users can submit it. By default, a form can be visible publicly. Now, after submission is the destination that we will send the user after they submit your form. By default, we will create a new conversation in Clarityflow and send the user into that conversation. So that means that you can use forms to not only collect information, but also use them to create new conversations with people who submit the form. So each person who submits will get their own dedicated conversation. Another option is to actually embed a form inside an existing conversation, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute as well. Or you can always just redirect the form to a custom URL of your choosing. That can be a URL on your own website or somewhere else. We're going to leave it to the default. And you can even customize the title of the conversation that gets created after somebody submits the form. Last but not least, down here on notifications, you as a member of your account, you will receive an email notification every time a new submission is sent, and you can turn these on or off here. You also have the option to send a confirmation to the person who submitted their form. So every person who submits the form, they can receive their form submission as a confirmation sent to them. That's off by default, but you can turn it on. Okay, now let's go ahead and test it out. So here's my form that I can share with anyone. And users can upload files just like that. Okay, I'm going to send the form. Now, in this case, we are sending the user through the new client onboarding flow. And so we're going to go through that flow here. We have a separate video all about the onboarding flow, and you can customize each of these steps, and you can even remove them or skip this whole flow altogether if you want to. We can even show a welcome message on their way in. But once they continue through that, they're going to end up at the new conversation that was automatically created for this form submission. And we even display a confirmation that the form was submitted at this time. I could have redirected them over to some other website or my own website if I wanted to. All of that is built in, as I just showed you. Now, back in my view, I can see all of my submissions here. So here's the first submission that came in from Emma Castle. I can click that, and I can see all of the responses that this person submitted to all of the questions. Up here, I see the person who submitted it, the time that they submitted it, and this links me back to that conversation. These are their form answers, and if I need to, I can even edit the form submission directly. Usually we don't need to do that, but that option is there for you. Now, one more thing, just like everything else in Clarityflow, we can deeply integrate forms into conversations themselves. So I'm going to create a new conversation, and we can always, post a message with a video or a text, but now we can also add a form right inside a message. So I'm going to select a form, like my questionnaire form that I just created. And so now anybody that I'm in a conversation with, I can ask them to come right here within this conversation without ever leaving our async flow. So all of the fields that I built into my form, they are included right here. And just like anything else, we can make this a message template. So I can go into my library down here, and I can create a new message template, and I can include that form on this message template. And then I can use this template in any course that I'm creating, or I can just insert it into any existing conversation that I'm in. It's really easy to reuse. And it's also a great way to build your custom forms into the content of your courses and your drip sequences and automated workflows, all built in with Clarityflow. So there's a lot more that you can do with it. Oh, and of course, one more thing, it is fully integrated with Zapier and our API, so you can You can trigger zaps whenever a form submission is created, and you can do all sorts of really cool integrations with our forms as well. If you have any questions at all about forms or anything else, we're here to help. So thanks for using forms in Clarityflow.